The coffee mug slipped from my fingers, shattering against the kitchen floor as I stared at the iPad screen. My wife's messages glowed like neon accusations in the morning light, each word a knife twist in my chest. "Can't wait to finally be together for 2 weeks," she'd written to her boss. "The resort looks perfect for us." 2 weeks, the same 2 weeks she'd told me were for a corporate retreat in Denver. "My name is Jake Morrison, and I've been fixing cars for 23 years. I understand engines, transmissions, brake systems. I understand when something's broken and needs replacing." What I didn't understand until day 5 was that my marriage had been running on empty for months, and my wife Erica had been shopping for a replacement. It started on Monday morning, day 1 of what she called her business trip. Erica stood in our bedroom doorway, her designer luggage perfectly arranged, looking like she'd stepped out of a corporate magazine. At 38, she still turned heads, especially in that navy blue suit that hugged her curves in all the right places. "I'll call you every night," she promised, adjusting her pearl earrings. "The conference schedule is packed, but I'll make time." I sat on the edge of our bed, watching her apply lipstick with surgical precision. 2 weeks seems long for a corporate retreat. It's a leadership intensive. "Marcus thinks I'm ready for the senior management track." Her voice carried that familiar note of excitement she got when talking about work. The same excitement that had been missing when she talked to me for months. Marcus Webb, her boss, 42 years old, divorced, drives a BMW, and has the kind of confidence that comes from never having motor oil under his fingernails. I'd met him twice at company parties, where he'd given me the kind of handshake that said he was measuring me and finding me wanting. "Marcus thinks a lot of things," I muttered, immediately regretting the bitter edge in my voice. Erica's reflection in the mirror froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just 2 weeks is a long time to be away." She turned around, her expression softening slightly. "Jake, this is important for my career, for our future. The promotion comes with a 40% raise." Our future. The words should have warmed me, but they felt cold as winter rain. When had our conversations become negotiations? When had our marriage become a business partnership, where she was clearly the senior executive? "I know," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm proud of you." She kissed my forehead, her perfume lingering in the air long after she'd gone. Chanel No. 5, the same perfume she'd worn on our wedding day 12 years ago. Our daughter Tessa, 17 and permanently attached to her phone, barely looked up from her TikTok feed as her mother left. "Bye, Mom. Try not to work too hard." The house felt different with Erica gone. Quieter, but also somehow more honest. I went to work at Morrison's Auto Repair, the shop I'd built from nothing into something respectable. My best friend Ricky Martinez worked alongside me, and he noticed my mood immediately. "You look like someone stole your lunch money," Ricky said, sliding under a Honda Civic. "What's eating you?" "Erica's gone for 2 weeks. Corporate thing." 2 weeks? Damn, that's like a prison sentence for married folks. Ricky had been divorced twice and spoke about marriage the way other people discussed root canals. But he was loyal, honest, and could rebuild a transmission blindfolded. In my world, those qualities made him family. The first 3 days followed Erica's promised pattern. She called every evening, her voice distant and professional. She talked about seminars, networking events, team-building exercises. Everything sounded rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. "How's the hotel?" I asked on day 3. "Fine. Standard corporate place. You know how these things are." But I didn't know. I'd never been to a corporate retreat. My idea of professional development was reading trade magazines and watching YouTube videos about new diagnostic equipment. "Miss you," I said, testing the waters. "Miss you too. Listen, I have to go. Early morning tomorrow." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the empty living room. Outside, our neighbor Mrs. Bell was watering her garden, probably listening to every word through our thin walls. She'd lived next door for 15 years and collected gossip like some people collected stamps. Day 4 brought a text instead of a call. "Exhausted. Talk tomorrow." Day 5 started the same way, but everything changed when I got home from work and found Erica's iPad on the kitchen counter. She'd forgotten it. In 12 years of marriage, I'd never seen her forget any piece of technology. Her devices were extensions of her body, constantly buzzing with emails, notifications, reminders. The iPad sat there like an abandoned puppy, its black screen reflecting my confused face. I almost didn't touch it. Should have left it alone, respected her privacy, trusted my wife of 12 years. But something nagged at me, a mechanic's instinct that said the engine wasn't running right and needed inspection. The screen lit up at my touch, no password required. We'd always shared our codes, back when we shared everything. The message notification showed 14 unread texts, all from Marcus, work. My finger hovered over the notification. This was the moment. Touch it and cross a line I could never uncross, or walk away and pretend everything was fine. I touched it. The messages unfolded like a roadmap to betrayal. Not just recent ones, but weeks of planning, scheming, arranging. Marcus had booked them a couple's suite at the lakeside resort, 4 hours north of our city. They'd discussed spa treatments, romantic dinners, finally being free to be together. Can't wait to wake up next to you, Marcus had written. 2 weeks of paradise, Erica had replied. Jake will never suspect anything. Jake will never suspect anything. I screenshot every message, my hands shaking with each tap. The timestamps told the whole story. They'd been planning this for 6 weeks, using company resources, company time, probably company money. My wife hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She'd betrayed her professional ethics too. The last message was from that morning. Wearing the red dress tonight, the one you bought me. Red dress. I'd never seen Erica in a red dress. Apparently, Marcus had better taste in women's clothing than her husband did. I set the iPad down carefully, like it might explode. The kitchen felt surreal, too bright, too normal for the bomb that had just detonated in my chest. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. Outside, Mrs. Bell's dog barked at a passing jogger. Everything was exactly the same, except my marriage was over. But they didn't know that yet. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my garage, surrounded by the familiar smell of motor oil and metal, planning my next move. Erica thought she was married to a simple mechanic, too stupid to figure out her game. Time to show her how wrong she was. Friday morning, day 6, brought a cheerful text from my loving wife. Conference going great. Learning so much. Miss you. I stared at the message, marveling at her ability to lie with such enthusiasm. Then I typed back. Miss you too, sweetheart. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get home. Two could play this game. At the shop, Ricky noticed my mood had shifted from depressed to something darker. You look like you're planning to rob a bank, he said, wiping grease off a wrench. Something like that. I showed him the screenshots, watching his face cycle through confusion, anger, and finally cold fury. That cheating bitch, he muttered. And with her boss. That's like double betrayal. Triple, actually. She's using company money for their love nest. Ricky's eyes lit up with understanding. Corporate fraud. That's federal, isn't it? Could be. Depends how much they've spent. We spent lunch researching corporate expense policies and whistleblower procedures. Turned out, most companies took a dim view of executives using business funds for personal romantic getaways. Who knew? That evening, Erica called as promised. Her voice sounded relaxed, happy even. How was your day? She asked. Same as always. Fixed some cars, made some money. How about you? Learn anything interesting? Oh, leadership strategies, team dynamics. Pretty boring stuff, actually. Sounds it. What's the hotel like? A pause. Barely perceptible, but I caught it. It's adequate. Nothing special. Nothing special. The Lakeside Resort's website described it as luxury accommodations for discerning travelers, with couples suites starting at $600 per night. Well, try to enjoy yourself, I said. You deserve it. Thanks, Jake. You're really supportive. The guilt in her voice was almost satisfying. Almost. Saturday and Sunday passed in a blur of research and planning. I learned everything about the Lakeside Resort, Marcus's background, and corporate expense reporting procedures. Knowledge is power, and I was building an arsenal. Sunday evening, day 8, I made my decision. I called in sick for Monday, loaded my truck with a camera and overnight bag, and drove 4 hours north to see my wife's business conference firsthand. The Lakeside Resort sat on the shore of Crystal Lake like a postcard from someone else's life. Expensive cars filled the parking lot, and well-dressed couples strolled the manicured grounds. I checked into a modest room under my own name, paying cash, and began my reconnaissance. Finding them was easier than I'd expected. The resort's restaurant had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, and Marcus and Erica had chosen a corner table with the best view. They sat close together, sharing dessert, her hand resting on his arm while he fed her strawberries. She wore a red dress that hugged her body like a second skin, her hair styled in a way I'd never seen. She looked beautiful, radiant, completely in love, just not with her husband. I took pictures through the window. my telephoto lens capturing every intimate gesture. Marcus whispered something in her ear that made her laugh. The kind of genuine laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. My chest tightened with a mixture of rage and something that might have been grief. They looked happy. Genuinely, completely happy, in a way that made our marriage look like a business arrangement by comparison. I drove home that night with a memory card full of evidence and a heart full of cold determination. They'd had their fun. Now it was my turn. Monday morning, day 9. I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and my laptop, composing an anonymous email to Erica's company HR department. I attached the expense reports I'd found online, the photos from the restaurant, and a detailed timeline of their romantic getaway. Dear HR Director, I wrote, I thought you should know how your executives are investing company funds. Please see attached documentation of what appears to be personal travel being billed as business expenses. I hit send at 6:15 a.m., then sat back to wait. The phone rang 8 minutes later. Is this Jake Morrison? The voice was panicked, cracking with stress. Who's asking? This is Marcus Webb. You need to tell your wife to get to the lobby now. Corporate security is here. They're asking about her, about you. I let the silence stretch, savoring his terror. They're saying you reported us, he continued. Fraud charges, misuse of company funds. Please, this will ruin both our careers. Can you call them off? I didn't do anything wrong, I said calmly. You did. Should have thought about that before stealing from the company. Jake, please. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. This time it was Erica, her voice high and hysterical. What did you do? She screamed. I exposed your business trip, I said, my voice steady as steel. You're destroying my life. You destroyed our marriage. Jake, please. You have to tell them it was a mistake. Can't untell the truth. She was crying now, deep sobs that might have moved me a week ago. Now they sounded like justice. An hour later, Marcus called back. Corporate is pressing charges. We're both fired. Why did you do this? I saw you at the restaurant yesterday. Decided consequences were overdue. You were watching us? Enjoying your company credit card dinner? Hope it was worth it. Another hour passed before Erica called from what sounded like a police station. Voices and radio chatter in the background. They're charging me with embezzlement, she said, her voice small and broken. That's between you and the law. I'm sorry, Jake. I'm so sorry. Please help me. Sorry doesn't fix this. What about us? She asked desperately. I laughed, surprising myself with the bitter sound. There is no us. Divorce papers are being filed today. Day 10 brought the sweet sound of justice knocking on my door. Actually, it was the sound of police cars in my driveway and my wife begging to come home. I watched from the living room window as 2 officers escorted Erica to the front porch, where I'd left her belongings in neatly packed suitcases. She looked smaller, somehow, diminished, wearing yesterday's clothes and yesterday's makeup. Jake, she called, pounding on the door I'd locked and bolted. Please talk to me. I stayed at the window, arms crossed, watching the show. Mrs. Bell had positioned herself in her front yard with a watering can, pretending to tend her flowers while recording everything on her phone. By evening, the video would be all over the neighborhood Facebook group. Ma'am, you need to take your belongings and leave, one officer said firmly. This is my house too. Not according to the restraining order your husband filed this morning. That got her attention. She looked up at the window where I stood, her eyes wide with shock. I gave her a small wave. The corporate investigation moved faster than I'd expected. Turns out, when you hand HR a complete evidence package, they don't need much time to reach conclusions. By Wednesday, the local news had picked up the story. Corporate executives charged in expense fraud scandal. The article didn't name names, but it didn't need to. Everyone in town knew where Erica worked, and small towns love a good scandal. Marcus's wife filed for divorce immediately, taking half his assets and his dignity in the process. The company sued both of them for restitution, demanding repayment of every fraudulent expense plus interest and penalties. Erica couldn't afford a lawyer. Her legal aid attorney looked like he'd rather be anywhere else when he called to discuss settlement terms. Your wife is willing to accept responsibility, he said. She's hoping for an amicable divorce. Amicable? I laughed. She committed adultery and fraud, destroyed our marriage, and humiliated me in front of the entire town. What part of that suggests amicable? Mr. Morrison, she's lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her savings are going to legal fees and restitution. She has nowhere to go. Should have thought of that before she decided to play house with her boss on company time. I hung up and went back to work. Cars don't fix themselves, and I had bills to pay. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. With evidence of adultery and financial misconduct, Erica had no leverage to negotiate. She got her personal belongings and half the debt. I got the house, the business, and the satisfaction of watching her learn that actions have consequences. But the real satisfaction came 2 weeks later, when I ran into some old friends at Murphy's Bar downtown. Tom and Jennifer Walsh had been our couple friends for years, the kind of people we'd barbecue with on weekends and double date to movies. They were sitting in a corner booth when I walked in, and their faces went cold the moment they saw me. "Jake," Tom said stiffly as I approached their table. "Tom, Jen, mind if I join you?" Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, we were just leaving." "Come on, we haven't talked since everything happened. I figured you might want to hear my side of the story." Tom stood up, his face flushed. "We heard your side. You destroyed Erica's life over a mistake." "A mistake? She was stealing company money to fund an affair." "That's not a mistake. That's a crime." "She made an error in judgment," Jennifer said. "But what you did was cruel and vindictive." I stared at them, recognizing the script. Erica had gotten to them first, painted herself as the victim and me as the villain. In their version, I was the controlling husband who couldn't forgive a moment of weakness. "Error in judgment," I repeated slowly. "Is that what we're calling 6 weeks of planning and fraud now?" "You could have handled it privately," Tom said, "worked it out between yourselves. Instead, you ruined her career, her reputation, her entire life. She ruined her own life. I just made sure there were consequences." "You're a vindictive bastard," Jennifer spat. No wonder she looked elsewhere for affection. The bar went quiet. Other patrons turned to stare at our table, sensing drama. I felt the familiar burn of humiliation, the same feeling I'd carried for weeks while my wife played me for a fool. "So that's how it is," I said quietly. "She cheats, steals, and lies. But I'm the bad guy for exposing it." "You didn't have to destroy her," Tom said. "You could have been the bigger person." "The bigger person?" I nodded slowly. "You mean I should have kept quiet, let her keep her job, her reputation, her dignity, just swallowed my pride and pretended everything was fine?" "You could have worked it out," Jennifer insisted. "With a woman who spent 6 weeks planning to betray me, who stole money to fund her affair, who looked me in the eye every morning and lied about where she was going." They had no answer for that, but their faces said everything. In their minds, I was the villain of this story, the bitter husband who couldn't forgive and forget. "You know what the really funny part is?" I said, standing up. "You're probably right. I could have been the bigger person, could have quietly divorced her, let her keep her secrets, her job, her dignity. But you know what that would have made me?" They waited. "A fool. And I've been that long enough." I'll laugh. I left them sitting there and walked to the bar, where Ricky was nursing a beer and grinning. "That went well," he said. "They think I'm the bad guy." "Of course they do. Erica's been working the sympathy circuit for weeks. Poor little victim, destroyed by her cruel husband." I ordered a whiskey and considered the situation. Erica had managed to turn our mutual friends against me, painting herself as the wronged party. In the court of public opinion, the cheated-on spouse who fights back is often seen as worse than the cheater. "You know what your problem is?" Ricky said. "What?" "You played defense. Time to play offense." He was right. I'd been reactive, responding to Erica's moves instead of making my own. Time to change the game. The opportunity came 3 weeks later at the annual Riverside Community Festival. It was one of those small-town events where everyone shows up to eat funnel cake, listen to bad cover bands, and pretend they like their neighbors. I hadn't planned to go, but Ricky convinced me. "You can't hide forever," he said. "Face the music. Show them you're not ashamed." He was right. I'd done nothing wrong, and it was time to stop acting like I had. The festival was in full swing when we arrived. Families sprawled on blankets, kids running between food trucks, teenagers clustering around the makeshift stage. I spotted several familiar faces, including Tom and Jennifer Walsh by the beer tent. They saw me and immediately looked away. "There's your cheering section," Ricky muttered. That's when I saw her. Erica stood near the information booth, looking lost and uncertain. She'd lost weight, and her clothes hung loosely on her frame. Her hair was shorter, cheaper looking, and she wore no makeup. She looked like a woman who'd been through hell. "Good." She spotted me at the same moment, her eyes widening with something between hope and fear. I watched her gather her courage and walk toward me, her steps hesitant. "Jake," she said when she reached me. I wasn't sure you'd be here. It's a public event. I know. Can we talk, please? Around us, conversations quieted as people noticed the drama unfolding. Mrs. Bell appeared with her phone already recording. This was better than cable television. What's left to talk about? I asked. I want to explain, to apologize properly. What I did was wrong, and save it, I interrupted. I'm not interested in your explanations. Her face crumpled slightly. Jake, please, I know I hurt you, but we had problems before Marcus. We'd grown apart, stopped communicating, so you decided to communicate with your boss instead, using company money. I didn't plan for it to happen that way. The crowd around us was growing, people pretending to browse the craft booths while straining to hear every word. I could see Tom and Jennifer pushing through the crowd, probably planning to rescue poor Erica from her terrible ex-husband. You didn't plan to get caught, I corrected. Big difference. I made mistakes, she said, her voice rising with desperation. But you didn't have to destroy everything. My career, my reputation, my future. Your career was built on fraud. Your reputation was a lie. As for your future, that's not my problem anymore. Jennifer Walsh appeared at Erica's side, putting a protective arm around her shoulders. That's enough, Jake. Can't you see she's suffered enough? I looked at Jennifer, remembering her words from the bar. Suffered enough? She stole money to fund an affair, and I'm supposed to feel sorry for her? She made a mistake, Tom said, joining the growing circle of onlookers. Everyone deserves forgiveness. Forgiveness? I laughed, the sound carrying across the festival grounds. You want to talk about forgiveness? Let me tell you what forgiveness looks like. The crowd pressed closer, sensing a show. I could see Ricky grinning in the background, his phone out to record whatever came next. Forgiveness, I said loudly, would have been me keeping quiet about the expense fraud, letting Erica keep her job while she figured out her feelings. Forgiveness would have been a quiet divorce, sealed records, everyone's reputation intact. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the version of events they'd been hearing. But you know what forgiveness gets you? I continued. It gets you more lies, more betrayal, more disrespect. It tells the world that some people can break every rule and face no consequences. Jake, please, Erica whispered, tears streaming down her face. Please what? Please pretend you didn't plan this for 6 weeks? Please pretend you didn't look me in the eye every morning and lie? Please pretend you didn't steal money to fund your romantic getaway? The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. You want to know the real truth? I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the gathered crowd. Erica didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. Every text message, every expense report, every lie she told me was a choice. And when I found out, I made a choice too. I turned to face the crowd directly, speaking to everyone who'd whispered about me, judged me, painted me as the villain. I chose consequences. I chose honesty. I chose to stop being the fool who enables other people's bad behavior. And if that makes me the bad guy in your story, I can live with that. The silence stretched for several seconds before someone in the back of the crowd started clapping. Then another person joined in, and another, until half the festival was applauding. Not everyone. Tom and Jennifer looked disgusted. Several other people shook their heads and walked away. But enough people understood that I felt vindicated for the first time in weeks. Erica stood in the center of it all, tears streaming down her face, the weight of public judgment finally settling on her shoulders where it belonged. Are we done here? I asked her. She nodded, unable to speak. I walked away, leaving her standing in the wreckage of her carefully constructed victim narrative. Behind me, I could hear the crowd dispersing, conversations buzzing with excitement. The story would spread through town like wildfire, but this time it would be the true story. Ricky caught up with me at the edge of the festival grounds, still grinning. That was beautiful, he said. Absolutely beautiful. Feel better? Actually, yeah, I do. And I did. For the first time since finding those text messages, I felt like myself again. Not the fool, not the victim, not the villain. Just a man who'd stood up for himself when it mattered. 6 months later, I was working late at the shop when Marcus Webb walked through my door. He looked terrible, hollow-eyed, unshaven, wearing clothes that had seen better days. His BMW was gone, replaced by a rusted Honda Civic that wheezed when he turned off the engine. We're closed, I said, not looking up from the transmission I was rebuilding. I know. I saw the lights on. Figured you might have a few minutes to talk. I set down my wrench and really looked at him for the first time. The confident executive was gone, replaced by a broken man who'd lost everything that mattered to him. Talk about what? About calling it even, about letting this go. I almost laughed. Letting what go? The vendetta, the revenge, whatever you want to call it. He stepped closer, his hands shaking slightly. I lost my job, my wife, my house. The company's suing me for $300,000. My kids won't speak to me. I'm living in a studio apartment and driving for Uber to pay my lawyer. Sounds like consequences. It's been 6 months, Jake. When is it enough? I studied his face, looking for the arrogance that had once defined him. It was gone, replaced by desperation and something that might have been genuine remorse. You think I did this to you? I asked. Didn't you? No, Marcus. You did this to yourself. I just made sure everyone knew about it. He ran a hand through his unwashed hair. I know I screwed up. I know what we did was wrong. But Erica and I, we really cared about each other. It wasn't just some casual affair. That's supposed to make me feel better. It's supposed to make you understand that we're human beings who made mistakes. We've paid the price. Isn't that enough? I walked to my tool cabinet, considering his words. Marcus had lost everything, true. But so had I. My marriage, my trust, my sense of security. The difference was, his losses were consequences of his choices. Mine were casualties of his selfishness. You know what the funny thing is? I said, turning back to face him. I almost feel sorry for you. Hope flickered in his eyes. Almost, I continued. But then I remember something. You didn't just betray your company or your wife. You helped destroy a 12-year marriage. You turned my wife into a liar and a thief. You made me question everything I thought I knew about the person I'd built a life with. Jake, and you know what the worst part was? You both thought I was too stupid to figure it out. The simple mechanic, too dumb to see what was happening right under his nose. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but I held up a hand to stop him. So no, Marcus, it's not enough. It will never be enough. Because you didn't just steal money or break company policy. You stole my peace of mind, my ability to trust, my faith in the person I loved most. And those things don't have a price tag. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because I don't think you do. You came here looking for absolution, for me to say we're even so you can move on with your life. But that's not how this works. I picked up my wrench and went back to work on the transmission. You can go now, I said without looking up. Marcus stood there for another minute, then walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I am sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you lost everything. Sorry there were consequences. But you're not sorry you did it. If you could go back and do it again, knowing you wouldn't get caught, you'd make the same choice. He didn't deny it. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone with the smell of motor oil and the satisfaction of having spoken the truth. 3 months later, I heard through the grapevine that Marcus had moved to another state, starting over with a new job and a new identity. Erica had done the same, taking a job with a small company in a different city where nobody knew her story. They'd both gotten their fresh starts, their chances to rebuild. And maybe they'd learned something from the experience, though I doubted it. People like that usually just got better at hiding their true nature. As for me, I kept fixing cars and living my life. The shop was busier than ever, partly because I was good at my job and partly because people love supporting the underdog in a good scandal. Mrs. Bell still gossiped, but now she spoke about me with grudging respect. Even Tom and Jennifer Walsh had come around, sheepishly admitting they'd only heard one side of the story. I never remarried, though I dated occasionally. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But I wasn't bitter about it. I'd learned something valuable from the whole experience. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let other people's choices define your worth. One evening, almost a year after the festival confrontation, I was closing up the shop when my phone rang. Unknown number, which I usually ignored, but something made me answer. Jake, it's Erica. I hadn't heard her voice in months. She sounded different, smaller, more uncertain. What do you want, Erica? I wanted to apologize, really apologize, not the public relations version I tried before. I waited. You were right about everything, she continued. About the choices I made, about the consequences I deserved. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I wanted you to know that I understand now. Understand what? That I wasn't the victim. That what happened to me wasn't cruel or unfair. It was justice. I leaned against my workbench, surprised by the admission. I destroyed our marriage, she said. I betrayed your trust, stole money, lied to your face for weeks. And when you found out, you did exactly what anyone with self-respect would do. You made sure there were consequences. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know that I don't blame you anymore for any of it. What happened to me was my fault, not yours. And I wanted to say I'm sorry for trying to make you the villain when you were just refusing to be the victim. The line went quiet for a moment. I also wanted to thank you, she said finally. Thank me for teaching me that actions have consequences. It's a lesson I should have learned a long time ago, but I was too entitled, too selfish to see it. Losing everything, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, I found myself believing her, which surprised me. I'm glad you figured it out, I said. I hope you're happy, Jake. I hope you find someone who deserves you. I'm working on it. Good. You deserve better than what I gave you. She hung up without saying goodbye, leaving me alone in the quiet shop. Outside, the sun was setting over the small town where everyone knew my story, where I'd become the man who fought back instead of the man who got played. I locked up the shop and walked to my truck, thinking about consequences and choices, about justice and forgiveness, about the difference between being the victim and being the fool. Somewhere in another city, my ex-wife was probably sitting in a small apartment, living with the results of her decisions. Somewhere else, Marcus was doing the same. They'd both learned that some prices are too high to pay, some risks too dangerous to take. And me? I was driving home to a house I owned free and clear, to a life I'd rebuilt on my own terms, to a future that belonged entirely to me. The business trip that was supposed to last 2 weeks had lasted exactly 9 days. Day 9 had been their reckoning, the moment when their carefully planned fantasy crashed into reality. But it had been my liberation, the day I stopped being the fool and started being the man who demanded better. I pulled into my driveway, past Mrs. Bell's house where she was watering her flowers and probably planning her next Facebook post. I waved at her, and she waved back, the gesture carrying a respect that hadn't been there a year ago. Inside my house, I poured a glass of whiskey and sat on my back porch, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of traffic, of life moving forward, of time carrying everyone toward whatever came next. I raised my glass in a silent toast to day 9, to consequences, to the moment when I stopped being a victim and started being a man who knew his own worth. The whiskey was smooth, the evening was peaceful, and for the first time in years, I was exactly where I belonged.